Rhymes, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. It is January the 21st. Let's look at that on a calendar. Here we go. We've got our kitten calendar right here. Let's find the 21st. Oh, there's the 21st right there. And it's a Thursday. See how it says Thursday? And we're all the way down here. It is the 21st. Well, I hope you're having a great January so far. I've got two great books for us to look at today. This first one rhymes, and it's called Hanging with the Home Bees. And I'm a beekeeper. I love honeybees. So when I saw this book, I had to get it. And it's part of a series, so we might get some more of these. And it rhymes. I don't know why I said that, but we're going to have fun reading this. Be Cool was asleep, all cozy and snug as a bug wrapped in a rug. Be Cool had a dream. It was always the same. He and his team were in the big game. There was no time remaining. Be Cool had the ball. He was surrounded by players, all of them tall. He wove through the traffic and into the lane. There was the shot that would end the big game. As the crowd screamed, "Go for the dunk!" he slammed the ball home with a loud kerplunk. They cheered for Be Cool. They chanted his name. This was his dream. It was always the same. That's his dream right there. Be Cool jumped up and flew out of bed as visions of B-ball buzzed through his head. Be Cool was buzzing. He was really excited, but his team did not seem to be as delighted. B-ball, hummed Honey, is a game for the tall. You may not have noticed, but we're all kind of small. Maybe next year your dream will come true, provided we all grow a foot, maybe two. There's all of his friends right there. Some raggedy roaches were on the next court, real nosy neighbors. We all know the sort. She's right, they taunted. You're all are real small. Who are you kidding? You can't play b-ball. One's large as a barge, the tall one's a nerd, and worse than all that, the third is a bird. And look at the punk who thinks he can dunk. Forget about it. Your team is sunk. Y'all, those are some mean things. Oh, goodness. We don't say those kind of things. That is mean. This bird, buzzed Honey, is the sort of sport to run you roaches right off of the court. Honey then tossed the roaches the ball, and with a grin, she says, "It's showtime, y'all." That's them right there. 10 minutes later, the game was through, with the roaches laid out 2 by 2. Be Cool shouted, "Too small for b-ball? I think the home bees should go for it all." Let's find out what happens. The All Hive game took place every year in the old Hive arena down by the old pier. Every bee in Beeford who entered the games lined up in a line to write down their names. Miss Beebody was always in charge of the list. To be cool, she buzzed, "There is something you missed. I see only 4 names. It seems you're one short. You need 5 players to get on the court. That's 3 plus 2, or that's 4 plus 1. But you must have 5, or your history, son." Oh, so they've got to get another player for their team. BB Sting walked by and shook his head. "You need one more, that's what she said. I know a bee that's too good to be true. He can pass, dribble, and shoot the ball too. This bee isn't lame, he's real good, y'all. He's named for the game. They call him B-Ball. So what do you say? He's ready to play. I'll have him fly by a little later today." And that's him right there. B-Ball flew by later that day, and as Sting promised, he was ready to play. A fidgety bee he couldn't stop. He was built like a spark plug and spun like a top. This bee couldn't stop buzzing. He had to be heard, though no one in Beeford could translate a word. To top it all off, he was smaller than small. Bee-ball was the smallest smallest bee of them all. Whoo-wee, signed Honey, trying hard not to laugh. We still don't have 5. We have 4.5. Oh no, let's find out what happens. The home bees were staring, but not at Bee Ball. So Honey Bee inquired, "What's up with you all?" Be Cool poignantly pointed at 5 sets of huge shoes. There stood the champs. There stood the Blue Loos. Lou was a monster. Lou 2 was one too. Lou 3 and Lou 4 were both big and both blue. Lou 5 was the biggest Lou of them all. The Blue Loos were the champs, and they were taller than tall. Oh, we see them right there. Everybody's scared of them. Let's find out what happens. Lou 5 walked over and laughed in Cool's face. He said, "You call this a team? It's a disgrace. One's large as a barge, the tall one's a nerd, and worse than all that, the third is a bird. The fourth bee I see is the size of a pea, and one named Be Cool is no match for me." Be Cool looked the big guy in the eye and sighed, "Try a little humble pie." "You don't act like champs to me. Champs behave with dignity. We may be small, but all the same, don't count us out, 'cause we've got game." Oh, wow. Let's find out what happens. They practiced morning, night, and noon. They practiced by the light of the moon. And when their wings were good and sore, they practiced just a little bit more. Okay, so they're getting ready for the game, huh? To perform as a swarm, it helps to have a uniform. Since the home bees had no dough and none of them knew how to sew, they asked Queen Latibi to agree to make uniforms for free. Oh, so she's going to make uniforms for everybody. Be Sharp put the gizmo to the test to plan the plays that worked the best. The gizmo sifted through the data, and every play it thought would matter. It ran every play in the NBA and finally stopped around midday. Sharp snatched a note from the insane brain. It said, "You're outmatched. Pray for rain." Oh no. Oh no. Let's find out what happens. 7 days went by in the blink of an eye, and Be Cool was as nervous as a fly. 1 hour to go, and what do you know? No other team had yet to show. No team wanted to lose to the Blues, and that's why Be Cool had the blues. "What have I done?" sobbed Be Cool. "Believe in dreams? I'm such a fool. I let this dream cloud my brain. Beat the champs? That's plain insane." "It's insane, all right," laughed Honey Bee, "but we all believe, including me. Just go out and play your best. But before you do, please get dressed." Oh, maybe that's their new uniforms. Let's find out. The teams met at center court. One was tall and the other short. The referee stood at the key and explained the rules to every bee. "There's no pushing or shoving in B-ball. No foul language. Is that clear, y'all? I have no cheating on my court. You'd better play fair. Got it, sport?" With no farther ado, she said with a grumble, "It's game time, you all. Let's get ready to bumble." The home bees started on defense and tried to build up confidence, but they couldn't stop the Loos at all. All the Loos were just too tall. With seconds left before the half, B-ball shocked them all and began to laugh. "Give me the ball," they heard him call. "It's time for the Loos to take a fall." With that, he swarmed into the lane, moving like a speeding train. He hung on the rim as he dunked the ball. "And that," he says, "is why I'm called B-ball." The buzzer sounded to end the half with no Blue Lou in the mood to laugh. Oh, wow. Let's find out if they win. In the second half, no ifs, ands, or buts. Little B-Ball drove the Blue Loos nuts. The more he scored, the madder they got as the game came down to one last shot. Oh, wow. The game was tied. Be Cool had the ball. He was surrounded by players, all of them tall. This was his dream with all of the commotion, and everything moved as if in slow motion. The crowd was loud. They chanted Cool's name, and he wove through the traffic and into the lane. But the lane was not clear as Be Cool was hoping, so he passed it to Honey, who, when he saw she was open, the crowd screamed, "Go for the slam dunk!" as Honey sunk the basket with a loud ker-plunk. The buzzer sounded and the game was all through. The home bees had beaten the Blue Loos by 2. Honey and B-Ball were swarmed by the crowd, and every bee in Beeford was cheering really loud. So they won. Be Cool eyed his friends with pride. He knew how they all felt inside. Then suddenly, through all this hubbubaloo, Cool's view was blocked by a big blue loo. "Your team played out of sight. You bees have got game. You were right. Here's my ring. Take care, you hear? I'm going to want it back next year. I like you, Cool. You got lots of spunk. Next year, you just might make that dunk." Cool watched Lou 5 walk away and knew that they would play another day. Every last drone was on his way home, and Be Cool had the courts all to his own. He smiled as he picked up the ball. It was a pretty good day, all in all. "That's right," Cool laughed. "I've got spunk," as he slammed the ball home with a loud ker-plunk. The end. That was great. That was called Hanging with Home Bees. Okay, we've got one other book to look at today, and it's a lot of fun too. It's called Charlie and the Cheese Monster. Oh, wow. Look at the opening cover. Charlie was bored, so he went to find his dad. "Daddy, can we build a rocket, please?" asked Charlie. "Why not?" said his dad. They made one out of an old sled, from bits from a bicycle, cardboard boxes, a plastic bottle, wire coat hangers, glue, and lots of sticky tape. Charlie's dad found a small motor, and when he pressed a button, on it sounded like the rocket was going to take off. They painted the rocket red and went inside for dinner. Just before bedtime, the paint was dry, so Charlie and his dad carried the rocket up to Charlie's bedroom. Charlie's dad had made Charlie a spaceman's helmet, and Charlie wore his spaceman pajamas and sat in the rocket for his bedtime story. Oh, and there's his rocket right there. Then Charlie's parents tucked him into bed and kissed him good night. Charlie went to sleep. A breeze coming in through the open window woke Charlie up. He looked outside and saw stars and a full moon shining in the sky. Charlie's rocket glinted in the moonlight, so he put on his helmet and stepped inside. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! Charlie pressed the button on the motor. The noise started and then grew louder, and the rocket began to move. It shot straight out of the open window. Whoosh! The rocket swerved upwards and flew high over a tree and kept going. Charlie could see down into his garden and then his whole street. He shut his eyes and held on tight for a minute and then opened them. The rocket had risen higher. All Charlie could see was a blue and green ball that he knew was planet Earth. He was a bit scared, but mostly curious, so he kept looking as the Earth grew smaller and smaller and smaller. Bang! There was a big jolt, and suddenly the rocket came to a stop. Whoops! Shouted Charlie as he got up from the floor of the rocket where he had fallen. He stepped out of the rocket and looked around. The ground was creamy white and felt bouncy. Charlie knelt down and dug his fingers into the surface. It smelled very familiar. It was his favorite food, cheddar cheese. He was on the moon and it really was made of cheese. He took a bite. It was the loveliest cheese he had ever eaten. He was about to take another bite when he heard a noise. He peered around the side of the rocket. A strange creature was grabbing huge chunks of cheese with its hands and stuffing them into an enormous mouth. It didn't look scary or unfriendly, so Charlie walked up to it and asked, "Is this the moon?" "Yes, this is the moon. What exactly are you?" said the strange creature as it licked some cheese from its hand. "I'm a boy," said Charlie. "A boy?" repeated the creature. "What a strange creature you are, so small." So what are you?" asked Charlie. "I'm a cheese monster," said the creature. "We eat lots of cheese. It's really tasty. You should try some." Wow, there's the cheese monster right there. "But you're eating up all of the moon," Charlie blurted out. "That can't be a good thing. What happens when you've eaten the whole moon? Will you eat my planet too?" Charlie worried. The cheese monster laughed. "Run out? We can't run out of cheese. Come with me. You'll find this interesting." Charlie's new friend led him to the dark side of the moon. Charlie couldn't believe his eyes. He was looking at the biggest cow he had ever seen, which was being milked by two cheese monsters. "This is Melly, our cow. We milk her to make cheese," said the cheese monster. "Let me explain the cycle of the moon's cheese to you. When we eat the cheese, the moon looks smaller. First, we eat the top layer and it looks like someone has taken a slice off the top. We keep eating and it looks like a big bite has been taken out of the moon. We keep eating the cheese on the bright side of the moon, almost down to the last slice, so the moon looks like it's a tiny crescent. Then we take all of the cheese we have made from its dark side and put it back on the bright side so the moon looks new again." "So that's why we have a new moon every month," murmured Charlie. Charlie had lots of fun with the cheese monsters. They let him make a gigantic block of cheese and wrote Charlie on the side. They put the block on the top layer of the moon so he could see it at bedtime, and they promised not to eat it. Then they took him back to his rocket and admired it when he got ready to take off. Charlie counted down from 5 and pressed the button on the motor. He looked out and waved at the cheese monsters, who waved back and shouted, "Goodbye, boy." The rocket zoomed through the air and the moon got smaller and smaller. Then there was a rush of noise and he flew back through his bedroom window and landed on the floor. Charlie climbed out of the rocket and looked up at the big shining moon. He was sure it was a little smaller already. Yawning, Charlie climbed into bed and fell asleep. The next morning, the sun shone and the moon could just be seen. Charlie grabbed his telescope and from the shelf and focused on the moon. In the middle of the moon, there was a tiny black dot. Charlie tried refocusing it, but his telescope wasn't strong enough. But he knew that if he could get a stronger telescope, he would see that the dot on the moon was really a name, his name, and it says Charlie. Yeah, right there. Smiling, Charlie went downstairs to breakfast. It was cheese on toast. Oh, that looks like a great breakfast. That was a great book. That was called Charlie and the Cheese Monster. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow, friends. Goodbye.